We are live.
Great. Welcome, everyone, to another Facebook Live with Dr. Nelva Bryant. My name is Greta Russo, and this, of course, is Dr. Nelva Bryant. And we are in our very last episode for 2023.
Wow.
Can you believe it?
This year has gone by so fast, and goodness gracious. Yeah, it's amazing. So this is really the last one. Somehow I thought we had at least one more. So this is it for the
This is it. This is it.
All right, we're going to end it with a bang because I got a good person that we're going to interview today that I've known for quite a few years. Think very highly of the gentleman. But before we go there, is there anything you wanted to discuss? Any current things that's going on to discuss?
Yes. Let's see. There's so many things, but what I want to say is I want to thank all of our viewers and followers who have been watching each of our Facebook Lives and making them a huge hit and sharing them as well. Dr. Bryant gives her information from the heart, and as the only veterinarian in the airline industry, she has a unique position to share with everyone. And we both noticed that, where we may say something once, we've noticed that we have to keep saying it because you're constantly getting new people coming to watch us. So it's almost like we're starting all over every time we do these. So I'm just appreciative of being on the journey, and I'm appreciative of everybody coming along with us as well.
Oh, yeah.
So the other thing, go ahead.
Yeah, we say the main thing as far as the Facebook Lives, really, remember we started out as really trying to introduce folks, our followers to different people we've met in the animal transportation industries, different stakeholders involved with animal transportation. And this whole year, we've touched on a lot of interesting things, a lot of topics related to pet travel, zoo animal transportation. I mean, we've hit the gamut. We talked about service animals. We've talked about transporting by cargo. Remember, we had Juan Deverez talking with Delta. We had last week, we had K9 Jets. What's his name? Sorry, Mr. Golden. What's
Adam?
His name?
Adam.
Yes, Mr. Yep. Had him here discussing things with us. We've had pet transportation companies sharing their information.
Yeah.
What else have we had?
Even large pet travel. Even large pet travel, zoo animals, exotic animals.
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing is, when I started off, I had an idea of the only thing people would be interested in, but it surprised me how well all the lives did, even with the exotic animals and the zoo animals. Rochelle is always a huge hit.
Yes.
So even the jet the last episode we did with K9 Jets, that was a huge one.
Yeah.
So it has gotten me to broaden my mind to think, what else can we bring on here? Because people are interested in it all.
I think so too. And again, I think the transportation issue, there's so many different stakeholders that's involved with it. There's a lot of education that needs to be shared. We're just sharing information so people finally have the knowledge base of knowing that it's not a small window. It's not just a small sector. Remember, like I said, again, we had Rochelle Watkins talking about zoo animals. Getting zoo animals prepared for transportation is very similar to how you would do your personal pets. And folks wouldn't was shocked to hear that. So I think we've hit a lot of great things this year. So and looking forward to next year with more and more people joining and sharing what they do related to animal transportation. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So we put the call out for companies in the transportation sector, companies in the pet travel sector, companies in just pet businesses. If you are touching any touch point in the traveling with your pet or traveling with any animal, to let us know you want to come on our lives so that we can share your information with everybody out there.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And then another thing we've started to promote is Dr. Bryant is a great consultant for a lot of companies. So, whether you are in the airline industry or you're in the pet travel industry, the fact that you can bring on Dr. Bryant as the only a consultant veterinarian and in the airline industry is a huge plus to your business. And then also I wanted to point out that Dr. Bryant is an accredited veterinarian. She's accredited in Georgia. So if any pet parents need to get their health certificate completed, definitely reach out to Dr. Bryant. And also, veterinarians, you might not have the time to even do it. You don't have your accreditation in Georgia. So why not hit up Dr. Bryant so that she can take care of that for you?
Yeah, so I have a good veterinary, good colleague, veterinarian friend, mentor. Basically, he mentors me for practice. As to be honest with you, he's a good help for me on certain cases that I might be stumped with. And he said I'm the mentor for him in reference to pet travel and completing the documentation and everything. So, as veterinarians, we all need assistance in reference to doing it. Most veterinarians in practice, they're doing clinical work. They might be doing surgeries, dentals, or whatever, or just extreme cases. And to now slow down and realize the documentation requirements, vaccines, or everything you have to do to get an animal to travel either domestically or internationally, that's a challenge. So to have someone, I'm willing to assist you with it, but to have someone to do it on your behalf will be a big help, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And not only that, as a pet parent, if your pet is used to one doctor, you don't want to all of a sudden have to call some stranger to check over your pet because you want to travel somewhere. Mm-hmm. So, it's good if your veterinarian can be accredited, but if they're not, at least, Dr. Nelva Bryant, and she can do it for you.
Yeah, definite.
So, well, it's almost time to bring on our guests.
Okay.
And I'm excited because I haven't spoke to Bob in like a long time. So when you first started, I interviewed him, and his interview is on our site under Dr. Bryant's favorite things tab. And that interview is on there. So now we get to meet Bob from the Pet Advocacy. I'm sorry, please help me. I'm drawing here we go. Pet Advocacy Network. I was right.
Trust me, I've known Bob for quite a few years too, and just enjoyed meeting him. I met him initially because with Delta, we developed a animal advisory board, and he was one of the members at the time. It was PJAC, the Pet Industry Joint Advisory Council, but now it's PAN, Pet Advisory Network. But I've known Bob for quite a few years, and he's a joy. So let me add him in here, please.
Okay.
Here we go. Hey there, Bob.
Hey, how are you, Dr. Bryant?
Good.
Hey,
good.
We got to get the clap machine. Get that ready.
Next year for 2024, we will have a clap machine. We're going to have more updated technology and everything. We'll look more professional. Okay, so we're going to do our best to make that change. But yes, we're very happy you're here, Bob.
Well, I am thrilled to be here, and Greta, thanks for piling on the pressure. When you guys reached out initially, I was like, what do I talk about? Dr. Bryant knows all this stuff so much better than I do that I wasn't really sure how to approach it. And now you tell me I'm the last one of the year. So thanks for piling it on.
No, this is great, Bob. I think very highly of you. It was a pleasure seeing you fairly recently at the USDA, Animal Transportation Welfare Symposium. We were both there. That was awesome. So just a joy to know. I'm glad to know you. And I really was in awe of learning your background. So Greta, please share with everyone his background because it's amazing.
Well, let me introduce everyone to Robert Likins. He is the Pet Advocacy Network's Executive Vice President. He joined the organization in 2014 as the Government Affairs Director after retiring from a 25-year Army career. In addition to helping to lead and guide the Pet Advocacy Network, he staffs the Aquatic Committee, and his portfolio includes legislation and regulation affecting companion animal transport and endangered species. Bob holds master's degrees in legislative affairs, public policy, and business administration. Please, everyone, help me welcome Bob Likins. Now, this is where Dr. Bryant would normally have the clap machine, so I'll just clap. Yay!
Like I said, I'm thrilled to be here. several times now, and always learn a lot when we sit down. So it really is an honor to be on the host.
Thank you so much for joining us. So Bob, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and more in depth about yourself and Pet Advocacy Network.
Sure, absolutely. It was an interesting transition for me because, as you said, I was in the Army for 25 years, and I was your typical knuckle grinder. I was an infantryman, a paratrooper. I did the Rangers and Special Forces. I did nothing that remotely resembled what I ended up doing when I retired, and I just happened to fall into it because my last job in the Army, I got stationed at the Pentagon as a congressional liaison, and it just opened the door. And PJAC at the time, the Pet Industry Joint Advisory Council, had a job listing out there looking for a Director of Government Affairs, Industry Not Disclosed. So I sent them my generic resume that said, hey, I volunteered a horse rescue and a dog rescue, and I got a call, and they wanted to interview, and I've been here ever since. It's been a lot of fun. The Pet Advocacy Network, what used to be PJAC, we just had our 50th anniversary about a year ago, and did a rebrand from the Pet Industry Joint Advisory Council to the Pet Advocacy Network because we thought it explained who we were a lot better. And frankly, when I'm testifying, I generally get either 2 or 3 minutes to testify, and burning 30 seconds of that explaining what PJAC is was a challenge. So the rebrand has gone really well. It seems to have been pretty well received. We are a trade association primarily focused on the U.S., but I do a lot of our international work when there is international work. And we are a very broad-based association in that we represent all aspects of the pet care community, whether it be breeders or transporters or retail stores or manufacturers. But we are a very narrow trade association in that we are not a full-service trade association. We focus primarily on legislative and regulatory work for the trade. So that's kind of who we are.
Fantastic. Now, I did get a question in from Instagram, and they are from India. So I don't know if that will make a difference in the question, but this veterinarian was asking, how can he join?
Go on the website, petadvocacy.org. I'm happy to have international members, and the other thing I can do absolutely is if you reach out to me, Bob at petadvocacy.org, just send me an email and I'll find out what organizations in your region, your country, may be able to partner with us on some of these international things. Because they're becoming more and more common. I'm actually leaving at 6:30 tomorrow morning to go to Thailand for a CITES songbird. So with CITES, with the EU and its changing regulations and laws, we're finding more and more that the international part is really important. And I have worked really hard and continue to try to expand our international network, because there's no way, I can monitor England's changing laws. But right. If I can find a good partner in England, then hopefully I can help them and they can help us, and we can all work together.
Okay. Well, Dr. Bryant has we every quarter we do a review of her website and her social media, and we're so easily impressed as well as appreciative. So we were so appreciative of the fact that she's become worldwide now, and she's got a large following in India, and I think Brazil and Canada and the UK. So it didn't surprise me when that question came in from someone in India.
Yeah,
that's fantastic that you've got a reach like that.
Really I'm thankful for the opportunity really to meet a lot of different people. I think it's really a lot of the meetings of attending say IPATA meetings or the animal transportation meetings, all these different things. I'm meeting people really worldwide, which is awesome. But I got a question for you, Bob. Do you interact with folks within the different federal agencies, CDC, USDA, with animal care, or U.S. and Fish and Wildlife Services? How do you advocate?
Really, we've interacted with all the agencies you listed. That's hopefully what we're out there doing for the responsible pet trade. The relationships really vary from issue to issue and agency to agency. We work hand in glove with CDC and USDA on a lot of issues. We have a zoonosis committee that we have been working and had stood up for quite a while now. And they actually participate on our calls, and we partner with them when algorithms are going out. If it has to do with a zoonotic disease or with Fish and Wildlife Service or USDA, if it has to do with something like, say, a salmonella outbreak, they would, they reach out to us, and when we see something or hear something happening, we reach out to them as well. And that's a very important relationship for us. Fish and Wildlife Service, we have a mixed relationship there. We work very well with them on some things. We've got a program called Habitatitude that is all about making sure that people don't take their pets and release them and have them become invasive species. That's actually a joint program between us and Fish and Wildlife Service. It's been very successful. We completely revamped it about 3 years ago, and it really is a good resource now. On the other hand, we end up butting heads on things sometimes. Fish and Wildlife Service has proposed a couple of rules recently that we have a real problem with. And NOAA, very similarly, there's a endangered species listing right now that they have proposed an additional rule for that we have a lot of problem with because we're not sure what's driving it. NOAA in particular, but both of them really ought to be looking for science-based solutions. I mean, you would think that that's what these agencies are doing, but the positions they're taking on them really don't line up with science.
With science.
Yeah. Some pretty esteemed scientists ridiculing them for their
work. Maybe they need more scientists, they need more veterinarians in those agencies that's really helping with those decisions, I would imagine then, because that should help. I noticed, to be honest with you, and there's a lot of industries where I'm gonna get my little soapbox. I think veterinary involvement should be within a lot of industries that we're not. I'm a big proponent on veterinarians working with animal transportation in the airline industries, with really any transportation industry should have a veterinarian, because if animals are coming through there, we need to have a veterinarian with it. Almost the same as when we say, if you go to the zoo, there's a zoo veterinarian. You go to the aquarium, there's going to be a veterinarian that's trained in aquatic medicine. We need to be in these different industries. So coming for NOAA, I'm surprised. Where's your veterinarians there? And U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, I know they may have a lot of biologists, but where's your veterinarians?
And I think if they do have vets, they're primarily centered in APHIS, in the Animal Plant Inspection Services, not in the policy making.
We need to be.
You're absolutely right. I mean, what a revolutionary idea, having veterinarians where you're dealing with animals. Call me crazy. I'm a huge fan. I keep a scientist on I have a science consultant, and for a long time I had a veterinary consultant as well. The fiscal realities being what they are, I now generally mooch my veterinary expertise from my members' veterinarians. But it is hugely important. And that's kind of my job in doing legislative affairs. I have to deal with regulations and legislations on such a huge, wide breadth of issues. There's no way I could be an expert. So my job is to form enough of a network that when something comes up, I can write a draft testimony and reach out to a veterinarian and say, does this make any sense? Am I speaking the truth here? and I couldn't do it without reaching out to vets and scientists and things
Right.
like that. And I would hope the agencies are the same way and not just making policy decisions based on where the winds blow.
I hate to say it, but I think there's a lot of industries that just never really thought about it. Maybe they never really thought that, say, veterinarians or someone with a background, veterinarians would have that training. And if you think about it, most times they think veterinarians are just clinical practice. They don't think about all the different things we actually can do and we're exposed to. So if you just think clinical medicine, then you think, oh, what can they do for me?
Well,
So,
I have a much broader view of vets because vets are some of my favorite people. When I was in Iraq the last time, I was a company commander. I had my own remote base, 154 guys out in the middle of nowhere, and by having my battalion veterinarian or my brigade veterinarian come out and visit me, the vets were the ones that did our food inspections.
yes, that's right.
So by having them visit me, I could eat food off the local economy instead of always having to eat those army issue big tins of food. So veterinarians were huge for us. It meant fresh food. It meant so much more. It meant being able to build relationships with the locals because I could then shop in the local markets.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Bob, let me ask you this, just touching back on our person who wrote into us. So if someone wants to be a member, you said that they should go to the website or reach out to you to sign up and everything. Is there a fee involved? What does the membership get you, like any benefits or stuff like that? Can you speak to that for a second?
It's a good question, and yes, there is a fee involved. Membership is costs are based on the type of business you are and how large you are. But the big challenge we face, being an association that does legislative affairs work, is it's very hard to demonstrate my value as a tangential member or as a tangible member benefit. We, for instance, I have a service that goes through and does internet sweeps for news stories every day, and I've got a couple of staffers that then have to go through all of the stories that were caught to make sure none of them have to do with legislative or regulatory changes, and to tell us we need to get engaged on something. One of the things we do, since we do that anyway and have that service anyway, we're able to put out a daily newsletter that's just basically a snapshot of what's in the news about the industry. And we put that out every morning. But I'm not a full service association. I don't provide insurance or or anything like that. I engage on your behalf in legislative and regulatory issues, and that can be hard to demonstrate tangibly. And the other problem is then people don't tend to join until there's a threat at their doorstep, and then it becomes too late because I haven't had a chance to build relationships in the world you need me to engage in.
Right. Okay. I know when you were telling me that everything, I kind of envisioned. So, for example, if you're a member of the ASPCA or Best Friends and stuff like that, in addition to everything they do to save animals, they have once a year a legislative day where they take their massive group of followers to Washington or the capital in the state that they're visiting. And so I wanted to ask if that's something that you do, because I found I've been to a couple of them, and I found they're so popular. Like there's, I think the smallest one I went to, there was 500 people there who went to spend a day in Washington while you sat and watched. This was when I went with Best Friends. They, on our behalf, was addressing the legislation about different, I guess, I don't want to say laws, I don't know what the right word is, but trying to get something passed through. And was talking
to support or oppose different pieces of legislation.
Right.
Yeah, we actually do that. We've been doing it for a few years now. Of course, we started just before the pandemic, which was wonderful timing. We did do it virtually during the pandemic, and it worked better than I thought it would. I think folks on Capitol Hill made a real effort to try and stay connected to their constituents and were more receptive to using the technology than I frankly expected them to be. But we generally do it in August. We do our Capitol Hill Day the same day we do Pet Night at Capitol Hill. So that's a program we do with a couple other organizations. And I can send you my picture. I've got my picture of last year's AKC Best in Show, who was at the event too. But it really is a lot of fun, and it's one of the best attended nights on the Hill, because it's really hard to walk into a staffer's office and say, "Hey, it's Pet Night at Capitol Hill. Come see some pets and hang out." It's always very well received. We also do an event with a local organization that provides service animals and support animals. So we'll do that on the Hill, and that's always very well attended, very popular as well. I think our best time was, and it was pure coincidence, but we ended up having our day on the Hill with the support animals the same day as the first day of the impeachment trial. So the timing was fortuitous.
Yes. Okay. Let's see, members would also, I guess, receive a newsletter from you as well with things you're working on and news you want to share?
Yep, we do that on a regular basis, and then obviously we'll do a year-end wrap-up and a little bit about what we see coming forward. We actually just did a webinar doing exactly that, kind of wrapping up 23 and looking forward to 24. And it seems to have been well received, and it's important for us because if folks don't know it, and this applies so much to your viewers, if you see that there are regulatory changes, there are rule changes within the industry, or there are regulatory changes affecting the industry, and you don't necessarily take the step back and think about how the sausage making happened and whether that change was a good idea and whether that change was based on any science at all, or somebody got attacked. I call it in the Army, we call it the good idea fairy. It's a very dangerous thing when somebody has a good idea based on no particular information. So it really is important that whether you're a business involved with pets, you're a business involved in animal transport, or in a lot of cases, if you're just a pet owner that may have to transport your animal, you really need to be aware of what's happening in the legislative and regulatory world, because it does have a huge effect on them. I remember when I was stationed in Italy, I was getting ready to move back to the States, and everybody in the military moves during the summer. The military tries very hard to do that, so kids get pulled out of school. They can start at their new school when the school year starts. The problem is several of the airlines changed their temperature regulations for transporting animals.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we had all kinds of soldiers abandoning their dogs overseas because they couldn't get them back because the airlines wouldn't fly them. The airlines actually were pretty responsive to it after they realized the problem. And, even in cases where it was marginal, started granting waivers to military members, traveling workers. So they did address it, but if somebody had been engaged on that legislation or those rule changes up front, because sometimes it is legislative, sometimes a state will do this, but a lot of times a company will do this. And if somebody is engaging that company up front just to point out the potential pitfalls to doing something like that, then maybe you can avoid it in the first place.
Definitely. Well, the temperature thing you talking about summertime, though, you have to realize, though, the temperature situation with airlines going by cargo, that's under USDA's, I'm sure USDA's Animal Welfare Act regulations. So
It is, but for a few years, a couple of the airlines started kind of going their own way and going beyond what the LAR, the live animal regulations recommend. So,
Right.
And this is one more place where you and I are going to cross paths. I love IPATA.
Yeah.
I've worked with them. I generally attend the IATA meetings. It's a little painful. They will spend months arguing about whether it should be a comma or a semicolon. But but the other side of that is it means they generally produce rules and recommendations that are very well thought out and very
Right.
so it's very seldom you see them put a change out to the LAR that has to be retracted.
Right. Well, it's interesting. Can you mention some of the regulatory changes? Because again, that maybe some of the followers are not familiar with some of the regulatory changes that's occurred over the past few years related to pet
let me point you to the biggest one that probably affects the most people, whether it be animal transporters or pet owners, and that is the change for emotional support animals in the passenger area. Now, we actually were very engaged on this, and I will grant you there is a business interest in it because people have to spend money to ship a pet where if they look at their lap they don't. But there are things that are a lot more important than saving a few bucks on how you ship your animal. The folks that handle live animal transport for the airlines are very good at what they do. Your animal is going to be transported in an environment, in a situation, in a setting that they have put a lot of time and effort into making sure it's correct. When you take that same animal and you put it unconfined in the passenger space, there are just a lot of potential problems that can happen. Particularly if there's an emergency on the plane, but we've had situations where a support animal attacked an actual service animal. You've got potential allergies, you've got space considerations, you've got a tripping or blocking hazard if you have to evacuate the airplane. But the other thing, and the reason I initially got involved in this issue was more personal for me, and that is because it was creating a real stigma for people who had a service animal.
Right.
I'm a retired Army guy. I have a lot of my peers that take great comfort and get great benefit from those service animals. And we were finding that the veterans in particular were traveling less because they didn't want the stigma attached with having their dog with them or their service animal with them, and they weren't going to go anywhere without them. So it was actually drawing them back into being more reclusive. So that was what got me involved in that issue.
Wow.
Their service duck and their service python.
Yeah, that was a rough time, but I'll be honest with you, I'm very happy with the outcome with it. It also, as you said, when the emotional support animals were involved, they interfered with the actions of the true service animals and their duties and what they were supposed to have been doing. So, it just wasn't a good situation. As you said, there were dogs attacking dogs or the service dogs. You had dogs attacking passengers or flight attendants. You had dogs defecating in the aircraft. All these things were happening. And I'm very happy with the decision. I know a lot of folks aren't happy with it, but really it allowed service animals to do their jobs for that person and not hinder them from traveling or keeping them recluse. They are now to be able to travel and not worry about what happens in cabin, basically. So I think it was a positive decision, and it was definitely supported by numerous organizations. So, but yeah, it's cool. So you got to work on that. Any other cool regulatory changes you can share? That again, because thinking about it is, there's a lot of people, a lot of followers, just that don't realize the regulations when it comes to animals. That there's a lot of regulations behind owning them. Definitely transportation, but You know, there's a lot of folks don't know and understand that your pet, yes, you love them, but there are regulations behind them. There are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, we always have to watch out when states start expanding their reporting rules when animals come in and out of the state.
Mhm.
You know, my daughter's been a horseback rider for years, and living in Maryland, I've got 4 or 5 state borders within an hour of me. You know, if she goes across to Virginia or to West Virginia for a competition, that's supposed to be, you know, you're crossing state lines. That should
Right.
have a vet certificate. You know, everybody does the coggins because nobody will let you onto their farm without coggins.
Right.
But you're supposed to have vet certificates every time you cross the state line.
Right.
And when states start adding things to that, it can make it just impossible for somebody to do the right thing, even if they want to. So that's the kind of thing we need to engage on. I would just bring up, because it's a recent change, USDA and APHIS recently finalized a lot of the bird regulations that have been in limbo for decades.
Right.
So whether it be pet owners themselves or people that transport animals, I would just remind folks that there are now a lot more regulations having to do with owning, or not so much owning, but shipping or breeding or raising birds.
Right.
And if I know there are people that keep doves or pigeons, things like that as pets, just be aware that doves and pigeons both are not considered pets by USDA. They're considered poultry. So if you're shipping them or if you're eating them, make sure you're following the right rules, because just because it's a pet to you does not mean it's a pet.
Right.
My wife is convinced our horses are her biggest dogs, but it ain't viewed that way by her.
Right. And you know what? And our federal government does make it difficult for everybody, because it's not as simple. We've got APHIS, Animal Plant and Health Inspection Service. There's veterinary services with them. There's animal care. Then you might have, and these are all under USDA. I'm sorry. Then you might have U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services for your exotics or reptiles, you know, and everything. And well, you mentioned NOAA. That's a different organization. It's just all over the place. It will be simpler in the United States if we had one organization and then everything that fell underneath it. But it makes it difficult.
I guess we do in that we have the White House.
Huh?
We have the White House and everything falls underneath it.
Oh, that's what it is. Oh, and I didn't mention CDC. How could I forget CDC? Importation. So a lot of folks will get confused. They'll say, well, actually, this is a prime example. Someone leaves the country with their dog. They have their international health certificate, and say they go to Italy and they want to come back on that same certificate. No, you can't. You have to meet CDC's importation requirements. So if you leave the country with your pet, make sure you meet the requirements also upon your return. And depending on that country, it might be extremely detailed. So it's just so much. You have to learn and know. And pet owners, a lot of them don't know this information. Don't know it.
I'll be honest. I would never try and travel internationally with an animal unless I had reached out to somebody who's an expert, who consults or does it all the time.
Right.
Maybe it's a product of the job I'm in, but I don't do anything unless I ask somebody who really knows how to do it. I never do anything new by myself. So,
right.
Recognize
that's the smart point.
If you touch animals anywhere in the supply chain as an owner, whatever, never do anything with it without consulting. Recognize when you're not an expert in something, and find that person.
Right. And look, and don't go to Dr. Google too. Dr. Google says this. Don't do that. Find an expert in that area, because it's everything is specialized. You have to really for travel internationally coming back, you really need a specialist, somebody a consultant to really help you with that, because again, it's not simple.
And in this day and age, they're out there. They're not. I mean, you talk about Dr. Google. Don't get the advice from Dr. Google, but it's a great place to find people to get advice from.
I agree with that. Yes. Use it for the resource, but not for the exact information fully. It's a resource.
What's the thing I keep getting told when I get pulled over? Ignorance of the law is not an excuse. You may not know there's a law about it, but if there is one, you can't. Claiming ignorance does not help.
Yes, I've heard. There's been instances where people have tried that. I remember when I was working with CDC, dogs coming to us, they're like, "Oh, I wasn't aware of that." Sorry, you weren't aware of it. You know, that's just, I always say the same as I didn't. Okay, there's no speed limit, posted on the road. So if you do 90, it doesn't matter. You should know you can't go that fast on these certain roads. So you can't just say, "Hey, I didn't know."
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're talking about Dr. Google, when I first moved to DC, I was working at the Pentagon, got completely lost. So I'm following my GPS to try and get home. It takes me on Highway 66. In DC, Highway 66 is purely HOV, or it was then.
Mhm.
I'd never heard of a road that was an entire road that was HOV only, not lane, the whole road.
Mhm.
So a cop pulls me over, and I went, what? He said, it's HOV. I said, it wasn't in the left lane. He said, no, the whole road. Well, the GPS told me to get on. Yeah, that's not the excuse. He didn't care. Following the GPS is not an excuse.
Right.
Following Dr. Google is not an excuse.
Right. That's something.
Let me ask you, Bob, can a pet parent become a member of your organization?
Oh, absolutely. We've got associate memberships for folks that just want to stay plugged in, get our emails about what's going on. We routinely do kind of update emails. We do the newsletter every morning, as I said. But we also send out alerts when there's something of particular significance going on. We want folks to write a letter, which we always help provide to lawmakers or to regulators, and help express their concerns or their support of issues. And so if they want to get those things, absolutely join as associate members, and then you'll be tied in and get everything we put out.
Fantastic.
Yep. Well, we're gonna have to. I'm not closing this off yet, but we're gonna have to cut it close because we both have. I think Greta and both and I have meetings, and you might too, Bob. But I want to ask one more question to get your thoughts on something. Since it's the thing that everyone's talking about, what do you think about the mysterious canine infectious disease that's going on? What do you think of that?
I think it's one of those things where I am glad that I am tied in with experts on it. It's something obviously we're very concerned about,
Mm-hmm.
and keeping very close ties with CDC and with USDA about, because as facts and as potential guidance comes out from them,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be important that we share that as quickly as possible. These things are always scary, so you want to make sure that I'm in a position to act quickly when I've got good information. But there's not a lot I can do to do. So I may not be the first one out there saying something about it, but I want to be the first one out there saying the right thing about it.
Oh yeah, no, that's good. I know there's a lot of recommendations out of just be careful with your pets. Definitely if they show any clinical signs, to see a veterinarian quickly. Don't wait on it. And then also, since it's not really determined how it's transmitted fully, they're saying be careful as far as the environments your pet may go into, just to be careful. But I think, such as dog parks, could be doggy daycare. And I'm not saying don't go to these places. I think the most important thing to do, really, honestly, as a pet owner, is just be vigilant, pay attention for clinical signs, don't let it delay, and get your pet treated as soon as possible if they show any clinical signs with it.
Dr. Bryant, do you know what those signs are?
I believe it's more respiratory, could be coughing, could be sneezing, so upper respiratory type of infection, might be a nasal discharge and what have you too, but it seems to has progressed to down to where they can get a pneumonia with it too if they're not treated quickly. So I would say that I'm gonna add another place where I think I know a lot of folks are giving, a lot of veterinarians are giving recommendations. Be careful. I would say also the SARAs, the service animal relief areas, and the airports. I think that's an area too, probably need to be careful with. Used primarily, of course, by the service animals or service dogs, but a lot of pet owners that carry their dogs or cats in cabin, they use those as their restroom for their pets too. So just be careful in those environments. Make sure if there's a community water bowl, might not want to use that or clean it before you let your pet drink out of it, because again, they're not sure how it's fully transmitted. And then nose to nose with dogs you don't know. I always say that one anyway. I don't like my dog going nose to nose with a dog I don't know, because things can be spread that way. So just be careful with that. So any other
It's
thoughts
okay,
on that?
nose to butt. It's okay, nose to butt.
No. No. Well, you know, that's dog behavior, and that's what they like to do.
It's just a handshake to them.
That's a handshake. That's a handshake for them. But yeah, just to be careful on that. Anything further you want to add, Bob? Really happy you joined us today and sharing information. Anything else you want to share with us?
Just that I really appreciate the opportunity, and please let me know if there's anything more I can do. You know, if I need your expertise, I'm not going to be shy about picking up the phone.
Right.
So
Right.
I will pester you. Feel free to do the same.
Yes, I always.
Well, I hope you can come back again next year, Bob. Maybe we can do
look forward to the clapping machine.
Yes, I will have the clapping.
Absolutely.
Trust me, that's a goal for 2024. It will be there.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. I sure appreciate it. Have a great holiday.
All right, thanks, Bob.
You too. Well, I just want to tell everybody to make sure they follow Pet Advocacy Group. Pet Advocacy Network. And their website is petadvocacy.org. Also, if you have not, and I don't know how you haven't, make sure you follow Dr. Bryant, and her website is winpets.com. Bob, you guys are on social media, correct?
We are. I actually just brought a new communications director on board, so he's going to be going through that kind of refocusing it to make sure we're aimed at the folks we need to be talking to and communicating more. But we're out there. We're just still organizing how we're out there.
Where can people follow you?
We are on Twitter. We are on actually LinkedIn is where we do a lot of it. We are on Facebook. I believe that is it. We're not on Snapchat or anything like that.
Okay, and everyone, you can definitely follow Dr. Bryant on Facebook, Instagram. You can also follow her directly on LinkedIn. So I just wanted to say I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday, a fantastic rest of their December and end of the year, and we look forward to seeing all of you next year.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Talk to you later.
Hold on, Bob. I'm going to do end stream.